There is a tendency in some places to think that artists with first-hand experience of mental distress ought to make that experience the constant subject of their artistic output, and that artists with histories of mental health issues ought to fully disclose those issues for the sake of those who are interested in their artworks. Thankfully, there's no law that actually requires this of any artist. Can you imagine how stigmatizing that would be, and how reductionistic in approach this would encourage in the interpretation of art? In that kind of territory, we would not be far from making the lazy and unexamined assumptions about a causal connection between creativity and madness that people often do. Having said all this, it wouldn't be surprising if some artists with lived experience of mental distress chose to use that experience as a resource for their creativity. And this is precisely what Charlotte Johnson-Wahl did in some of her works, notably those produced while she was a patient at the Maudsley Hospital in 1974. These works were put on show alongside others in a major retrospective of her work in 2015. And this catalogue, Minding Too Much, was one of the results. Today, the museum can send copies of this catalogue to UK addresses for a payment of £22.95, inclusive of postage and packing, and the link at the bottom of your screen is the one to follow to make your order. I was fortunate enough to have attended the private view that launched the 2015 retrospective. And I remember that there were some people who found Charlotte's work from 1974 so confronting that they dashed through the room in which they were displayed with a view to spending much more time with her later works. My own inclination, by contrast, was to spend as long as I could with these early works, as challenging as they were. To my mind, the curator of the exhibition and the writer of the catalogue got it exactly right by saying that one quality connects these paintings. They are unflinching. However inwardly anxious, Johnson-Wahl never fails to confront the truth as she sees it, and as she sees it in herself. Well, I'm standing next to one of these very works, which dates from the time of Johnson-Wahl's hospitalization and lifts the lid on her experiences at that time. It's called Ask and Get No Reassurance. And with it, we are brought face to face with what Minding Too Much calls the medical mantra that underpinned Johnson-Wahl's treatment. To combat her intrusive thoughts and fears of contamination, she was made to touch things she believed to be dirty and sent to paint without washing her hands. According to the catalogue, it was hoped that this would help her confront and overcome her OCD. This was a completely standard form of treatment for obsessive-compulsive disorders at the time, and I suppose it is possible to see the logic behind it, insofar as it may have functioned to test, falsify and recalibrate the worst fears of those whose everyday lives have been crippled by OCD. It took a considerable emotional toll on Johnson-Wahl nevertheless, though the toll was not so great as to prevent her from representing her predicament on canvas. And that is something for which we may be grateful. It may be that you and I wouldn't want to have this painting on our dining room walls, but it can't be denied that it conveys the truth as seen by Charlotte Johnson-Wahl, the truth about herself and about her treatment. The precise nature of her complaint doesn't concern the treatment per se, but her objection is to the apparent lack of human empathy with which it was delivered. Empathy, support and information for which she would ask during the course of treatment, but get no reassurance concerning. According to Minding Too Much, the catalogue, she wasn't allowed to talk to her doctors or discuss her anxieties at all. And it's testament to her resilience that she finds a way through her artwork to register a protest in no uncertain terms, and in a way that was heard by the hospital, if the exhibition that was put on of her work was anything to go by. In the previous video to the series, I explained that Patricia Aldridge, the founder of the Museum of the Mind, assisted Charlotte in curating this exhibition. Decades later, Patricia spoke to me on several occasions about how that collaboration and others like it helped to shape the raison d'etre of the museum, in the direction of ensuring that the lives and experiences of those suffering mental distress were front and center of the museum's work. I'll be back in a couple of weeks to talk more about Charlotte Johnson's work in one more video. And in the meantime, I'll leave you with that link that you need at the bottom of the screen should you wish to get your own copy of Minding Too Much, which is $22.95 inclusive of postage and packing to UK addresses. See you soon.